Hey everyone, I'm so glad you're here with us today. Marianne Shuko is away on vacation and much earned, and I'll be taking on the reins today. But we have a great show. Today we have a new author, and her name is Jennifer Sullivan, and she has a really interesting story. So many times we hear from people who talk about caring for their loved one and the deepening of an already close relationship. And today we're going to hear from someone who really had to struggle through a very difficult relationship and saw some things happening on the other side of this time period and how it changed her and who she is as a person, other relationships in her life, and also confronting the really harsh realities that many people faced during COVID. So this is a story that's rich with a lot of different things that I think all of our listeners and readers will appreciate, and for years to come we'll be able to learn from. And I just am excited that we are able to talk with her. And we also have with us Jean Lee, one of our founders, who was the acquisitions editor who found this book and brought this author in. So we're really grateful that she can be with us too. So stay tuned. It's a great show and there's lots to learn. Thanks. Welcome to Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia, a podcast from AlzAuthors. I'm Christy Byrne Yates. Marianne Shuko is on vacation this week, so I am taking the helm. And I have a really exciting show for you today. We have a wonderful new author, our August author. Her name is Jennifer Sullivan. And she wrote a wonderful memoir about caring for her mother called When the Window Closes: What I Learned Caring for My Mom While She Was Alive and Dying. I mean, isn't that just intriguing enough? And we will hear about this. And I just want to say there's so much in this book and what we're going to talk about that I think will resonate with so many people. We also have with us Jean Lee, another founder of AlzAuthors. Hi, Jean. How are you?
Great.
Oh,
Thank you for including me.
absolutely. And I've asked Jean to be here too because we are really loving having the acquisitions editors from AlzAuthors meet with us when we introduce a new author. And Jean found Jennifer and she read her book cover to cover. And Jean, tell us a little bit about what you saw, what you felt, what you loved about this book.
As an acquisitions editor for AlzAuthors, I love working with memoir. I think our followers are drawn to memoir because it is a story that has some parts of their own journey, even though each journey is different. And in Jennifer's case, her book is powerful in that she had such an unexpected journey with her mother. And it was not an easy journey. And she took lemons and made lemonade at every turn, um, at every difficulty. And there were many, from Jennifer's childhood until she had to say goodbye to her mom during COVID. And I'll let her talk about all of that. But it's powerful, and I encourage you to read it if you are on your own journey.
Thank you.
Oh, and thank you so much, Jean. And so we're going to bring Jennifer in. Hello, Jennifer.
Hi.
We're so happy to have you here, and
Thank you.
welcome to the AlzAuthors family. And Jean just gave such a great intro to this, and I think too this book is going to resonate with so many people because you didn't have a perfect situation with your mom, not a perfect relationship. And, we often talk about our loved one, our loved one. And while we love someone, we may still have a really fractured relationship with that person. And that's hard. So you really met that challenge. And I'm going to let you tell us. So if you could tell us a little bit about how you came to write your book, a little bit about your story, and we'll just dive right in.
Okay. Well, my mom was diagnosed with dementia in November of 2013. And she had had a brain hematoma, so bleeding on her brain, not in her brain, in 2009. And she had had 2 concussion falls that we know of. My suspicion is that she fell in 2009 as well, and that's what caused the bleeding on her brain. And she was in the hospital, and she was in Arizona. So it's my mom and my sister and I. That was my core family growing up. My parents got divorced when I was 10.
Yeah.
And my mom and my sister lived about 3 blocks from each other. And so they were very close, all through my childhood, all through adulthood, very close. For whatever reason, when my mom had the brain surgery, my sister didn't go to the hospital. And I was just like, I can't leave her there. So I flew down and I spent 13 days with her, 6 of them in the neuro ICU, and then the rest in the hospital. And I got her settled back at home. But that kicked off her Alzheimer's, and we did not know. My sister and I were not on speaking terms, which is, pretty much how we lived a lot of our adult life after we both, graduated from high school and got married. So we weren't talking about those things. And my mom was an eccentric woman.
Mm.
She was, that's putting it mildly. My mom was a pretty eccentric woman. She had a very loud laugh. She had really funny one-liners she could just whip off all the time. And I just thought she was getting more eccentric. Some of the things she was saying and the things that were happening. And we didn't check in that often. She and I were not very close.
Yeah.
So when she was diagnosed with dementia, she had called me a couple weeks before, told me some odd things on the phone. She'd maxed out her Target card to buy food. I didn't know what was going on and why she had no money. So I sent my sister an email and I put in the subject, please read, this is about mom. Because
Yeah.
I feel like if I hadn't put that, she might have just deleted a message from me. And so I told her what mom said. She texted me right back and said, it's worse than you think.
Mm.
And so we connected a little bit about my mom's financial difficulties and what was going on. And then she ended up in the hospital and she was kept for observation for 4 days, which I had no idea why. I had no idea what was going on. Why would they keep her there? She went in with a headache and nausea and throwing up. So why would they keep her there? So we found out at the end of that they diagnosed her with dementia and she couldn't go home alone and she needed to surrender her license. And there was a lot of stuff we needed to do. And my sister told me that, and I had like no clue, no
Yeah.
idea what that meant.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm like, okay, she's gonna forget some stuff. We're gonna have to find her a place to live, an assisted living, or we're gonna have to help her out. But I just really had no clue at all.
Yeah. Just kind of, you know, a U-turn and you didn't know you were even on the road.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh. Yeah.
yeah. So my mom had been talking about leaving Arizona and coming back to Oregon because it was hot. She had moved down there to take care of her youngest grandson. He was in school, so she wasn't as needed by my sister and her family. And, for whatever reason, she hated the heat and just got tired of it. And so my sister and I decided to move her to Oregon,
And
where I
that's,
live.
yeah, I was going
Yeah.
to say that's where you were. Okay. Got
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And she had lived here for a long, long time. So it would be familiar to her, which in my, so not very much knowledge about dementia, I thought, well, okay, it'll be nice for her to be somewhere familiar. So we flew her up here the day after Christmas,
Wow.
2013. And I picked her up at the airport and I was working. I was traveling a lot for work. I lived in a 3-story townhome. So my aunt and my mom's sister, my aunt and her husband were both retired, had a home that was 1 level and a couple extra rooms. So I drove her out there.
Yeah.
And then she had spent all of her 401k, all of her retirement money was gone. So in
Wow.
those years between the brain surgery and when she was diagnosed, there was all this financial stuff going on that we didn't know about. and she had taken her entire retirement and it was all gone. So she had no money.
Were you ever able to, I don't know, discover where she was spending it or how she was spending it?
She bought clothes, she
Yeah.
bought TVs. I mean, she just, I don't know.
And this is sometimes the thing that we find out after diagnosis. Oh, like the money, where'd that go? What happened? And yeah, very, very tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you moved her into your aunt's home,
Uh-huh.
and how did that go?
It went all right. My aunt called me, a few times and was like, there's things going on with your mom. My mom had given away all of her medicine in
Mm,
Arizona
oh
and
my
came up here
gosh.
with none of her medicines. And so we had to refill that. I had to take care of that. But the main thing I did was help her fill out that DHS paperwork to try to get her services. Because I had called a woman in town who specialized in helping the elderly with their retirement and where to live and what to do in certain situations. And I had called her, and when I told her mom had no money, because I was thinking like a place for mom is the one that came to mind because of those commercials on TV. And I was thinking that that would be what I could do. And because she had no money, she didn't qualify for that. So the woman told me to fill out paperwork to get my mom on Medicaid. And then there was a program here in Oregon, and I don't know if it exists everywhere else, but it's called Elder Place. And once a person qualifies for Medicaid and has access to Elder Place, there's a doctor who specializes, a gerontologist, I think is what they're called, speech therapist, food therapy, just general therapy. They
Yeah,
have their own dentist. And nurses. It's everything that they need.
that's
So
fantastic.
it was amazing.
Yeah.
And so once I got her approved for Medicaid, and then that program kicked in. Then it was about finding her an assisted living close to me where she could be a part of that program in the city that I live in. Uh, and so I kept going to my aunt's house and back. We went into DHS. My mom was very knowledgeable the entire time that I was controlling her life. And she did not want me controlling her life.
Right.
And so even those appointments were so tricky because if they asked her a question and she couldn't answer it and they looked at me, she was like, "Don't look at her,"
Yeah.
and just got very upset.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think both Jean and I can relate to that because we sat with parents who were like, "What? What are you talking about? This is
Uh-huh.
no, 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 that's not me." So your mom moves in and then how did this all evolve with your relationship with her? You said had been rocky as a teen
Mhm.
and then maybe tell us a little bit about that and how it evolved and you're getting some pushback, which is what many of us and our listeners can relate to this, many of us face. But how did the relationship progress?
Ah, it was difficult.
Yeah.
It was difficult for at least 4 years. My mom did not want me involved in anything. She had a delusion, and I don't know if that's because she was diagnosed finally with Alzheimer's from a traumatic brain injury from her concussions. So I don't know if her Alzheimer's was different than traditional Alzheimer's, but she had a lot of paranoia and a lot of delusions. And for years, her whole thing was that I paid a doctor to diagnose her with Alzheimer's so that I could take all of her money. Um, and that's what she would tell people. We had a very rocky situation. Her first memory care or her first assisted living, sorry, did not work out. But also I think there was so many people there and it was just difficult for her to fit in. She had a lot of opinions and just a lot of stubbornness, and yeah, she didn't fit in there. So then I had to, 1 year after she moved in there, pack her all up, and I would go in and pack boxes and help her. And then I would come back the next day and the boxes would be open and everything would be all over the place. And she's like, "What are we doing?" And just so mad. But I did move her into a small place that only had 60 people. It was just a beautiful community. She was able to make friends. People did figure out she had Alzheimer's eventually, but she could come and go, which was tricky because she ran away a
Oh,
lot. She would get on the bus because she's familiar with the buses, and she would just end up across town.
oh my.
I, sh-
And
it
this
was,
was at an assisted living, not a memory care.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so she was cagey enough to recognize that, oh, there's a lot of people at the door. I'm just gonna scoot on out of here. And she would go up to the main street, catch a bus, and then just be on the bus because she had a little senior bus card that they
Sure.
gave her.
Well, very
So,
clever. And
oh,
isn't that just,
so
and slippery? I love it. So you gotta love that she had so much
yeah,
courage or desire and able to kind of figure it out. And that is the tricky part, for those of us who have someone with Alzheimer's in our life or any kind of dementia is that, you know, we don't know what's going on inside and what their thought process is, but
mhm,
they can be they're human beings who have desires and they're clever and there's still a lot going on and then they go they go.
yeah.
um
Yeah. And most of that was, my I felt like I was a terrible caregiver. My mom didn't want me around. My sister and her family were supposed to move up the very next summer, so the summer of 2014. She had told me they didn't want to be in the heat anymore. They were getting ready to leave. And then that summer, she said, "Oh, my daughter is going to be a senior and doesn't want to leave Arizona." And that made sense to me. Okay, so now I have one more year, one more whole year, and then they'll move the next summer. And then by the next summer, they didn't move and they never moved here. My sister never came to Oregon. And my whole thing when I first started was I am just doing this until my sister gets here, and then she's going to take over and I can go back to, life that I was living before. And oh, so I was judgmental of myself. I was hard on myself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And yet you were not getting reciprocal care from your sibling to help you with this, so
No.
that's so tricky.
Yeah.
That makes it so hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I was, and that's I've always been a writer. That's what led me more to starting to write about what was going on. And I started to share some of the stories of my mom and I on Instagram mostly. My therapist early on in what was happening said she suggested that it might help me to take a picture of my mom every time I saw her just to see, like, because every day was so different. Every
Yeah.
time I saw her was so different. And so I did. I started taking these photos and then I posted them and I would write these stories about things that happened, funny things like me having to drive across town and pick her up at a hospital because she got off the bus at the end of the line.
Yeah.
Um, and that was really how I started sharing all of that. And many of my friends, they all knew my mom because she worked at the high school in the town that I grew up in. And so it was that was just helpful for me to
Yeah.
process.
I think that's so lovely. And a lot of our authors, and Jean, you can chime in here too, a lot of our authors do journal a lot because it's such a therapeutic process. And it's also data keeping, right? A lot of people
Yeah.
start by just taking notes
Yeah.
so they can keep track or know what's changing. I love the taking picture piece. That's what a great way to kind of help you be able to digest all of this. But then the writing can be so therapeutic, and then people sort of turn that into a memoir. Would you agree, Jean, or do you see that in a lot of our authors?
Yes, and myself as well. My journal became the core of Alzheimer's daughter for sure. Um, Jennifer, I would like you've kind of gone back a little bit to high school and mentioned that a bit. I think it would be helpful for our listeners if you could go back to your childhood and talk about what created this breach between you and your sister
Mm.
and you and your mother, because our listeners know that it existed now from hearing what you're saying, but they don't know how it came to be. And that I think is very critical to your book.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I wrote a chapter called The Trouble with the F Word. And I was 16, and I originally, that was not in my rough draft. And it was not in anything that my beta readers read. And it was my husband who asked me, did you put this story in the book? And I said, no. And he goes, you have to do it because it explains everything. So it was difficult for me to write, but I did it. So when I was 16 and that whole year, there was a lot of things that happened. I was in a motorcycle accident and it was Montana, so I was not wearing a helmet, and I was in a brief coma. And when I had seizures as I healed, and my mom kind of downplayed those, and so there was that. What happened is I had a seizure at school, which drew the attention of the school and the nurse, and my mom hadn't necessarily been taking them very seriously. She thought I was perhaps being dramatic, I think. And she got in a little bit of trouble for that, and she was very mad at me. So then I was in this play, The Sound of Music, and I was Liesel, the singing I am 16 going on 17. It was just, when I was 16 going on 17 singing this song, and she never came to see me perform. She sold tickets because she worked for the high school. She sold tickets at the door and then she left and went home. And I did this play for a week without her ever seeing me. Um, and and then she had a thing for like running through our rooms and cleaning them up. And she would warn us ahead of time, and I would go in and clean my room, but I had my journal, and I must have left it open is the only thing I can think of. And there was a boy I was mad at, and he hadn't been very nice to me. And so I was raised in a very patriarchal religion where we did not swear and we did not back talk. And plus it was a small town in Montana. I wrote the F word in this journal many times about this boy, and my mom found it. She gave it to our pastor, and they confronted me together about it. And here I am, like 16, on the doorstep with my school bags, getting ready to walk to school. And I said, F you to both of them, embarrassing my mom, just mortifying her. And I went to school, and I knew I was going to be grounded for sure when I got home. But when I got home, my mom had written the F word in red lipstick on every photo of me over my face. And she told me, this is all I can see when I think of you.
Oh my gosh.
And as a 16-year-old, that was it. I can tell you that was what drew me or pulled me away from my mom. She didn't talk to me. She took it to someone else. Let someone else read my journal, which should be private.
Right.
And I just, all my trust in her, I was gone. And I never really shared personal things with her after that.
Yeah.
My first marriage was incredibly difficult, and I didn't share anything with her. I didn't trust her. I didn't open up to her, and I pulled away. I left home when I turned 18, right after I graduated. I got married when I was 19. I had 3 children before I was 24.
Wow.
I just wanted a way to live my own life away from her.
Yeah. Well, and that story is Jean's right. That's so powerful, and knowing that that's the backdrop, and then what you did from 2013 on for your mom is such a juxtaposition, right? You
Yeah.
had such betrayal from your mom. That was such
Mhm.
really that she read your journal is a breach, and that she would give it to someone else is such a breach. And then and just the shaming, and I just,
Yeah.
gosh, my heart goes out to you, to your 16-year-old self, who's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, so wounded,
Yeah.
understandably so. And yeah, that's pretty powerful. And then how did that have any impact on what did that event have impact on your sister, or your relationship with your sister? Is that part of it?
Well, my mom and my sister were always very close. She could get away with anything and didn't really ever get in trouble. I can tell you that I did not take the red lipstick off my face. I refused to do that. I got very stubborn and angry about that. We did not go in the living room for 2 weeks. My mom eventually had people over from church and had to clean it off. Uh, yeah, my sister and I had a very difficult relationship too, and I think that's possibly because I was jealous of her relationship with my mom. Um, but she and I are very different,
Right.
very, very different.
And your parents had divorced earlier,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so were you closer to your dad?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I was 100% a daddy's girl. If he was driving the tractor, I was right there in the tractor seat with him. I went everywhere with him. If he fed the goats, I was tagging along.
Yeah.
He was, I adored him. I
Yeah.
adored him.
And so this whole thing is so powerful for readers to hear, and so many people I think will resonate with this, because we think of caregivers as like I said, oh, it's my, not just my duty, but I want to do it. It's this, and then here you have this really fractured relationship with someone, and with a sibling, and yet you jumped in to do more. So I know there's so much more to this too, because your title really refers to something that I think is also, we're starting to have more and more books about this time period of COVID. And
Mhm.
so, can you tell us a little bit about where your mom went from the assisted living to finally, where she was during COVID, and how that progressed for you?
Yeah. My mom's needs became too big for the assisted living in the fall of 2018. And she had disappeared quite a few times. She had been in the hospital quite a few times. She was having altercations with people who irritated her. She was injured. She injured someone. Those kinds of things. And it was memory care. Finding her in memory care was tough because she's on state services. I went to so many different places. And for me, it was the smell. That
Yeah,
was one thing. The look of contentment or whatever on the other family members there, and just trying to get a general feeling or vibe of the place. I ended up finding a new memory care that had just opened and only had beds for 20 people. It had a nice, it was square with a courtyard, an outdoor courtyard in the middle, so she could still go outside even though the front door was locked. And at the time I moved her in, there were only 8 people there. And so
right.
she was one of the earliest residents. And it was a very difficult transition. Again, with the whole move, she didn't understand what was going on. But also when she got in there and that door was locked, oh my goodness, she
Yeah.
was livid, livid with me. And I went every single day to see her because I just wanted to be there. And I had this whole thing. She had forgotten who I was. So I was at that point more of just a nice lady who came to visit. And I did not want her to, I guess I just wanted to be there every day to help her with the transition. Her case manager through Elder Place told me that I needed to stay away for a month, which I could not do.
Oh,
So eventually I did split the difference down the middle at 2 weeks because my mom just was so, so, so angry. She almost got kicked out of there in the
wow.
first 3 months she was there for the same kinds of things, just physical altercations, yelling, too much, and that we had to adjust her meds. But that's where she was, and I would I would just go in there. After those 2 weeks I stayed away, they had an accordion man who played on Saturdays. I would go in and sit with her and we would sing because that was one of the few things that she fully remembered was lyrics. My mom loved music. We kind of a musical family, so lyrics to songs she always remembered. Um, yeah, and then
And so then that's 2018, and then we're progressing, and then 2020 we get this
mhm, yeah,
virus, and so she was still there, and
yes. And ironically, that year of like 2019 and into 2020 was when my mom settled into this calm kindness.
mhm, yeah,
And and because I was at that point the only regular face like that came to visit her,
yeah.
she loved me. And
Oh my
I mean, I
gosh.
knew she loved me all along, but I really felt like, okay, I'm having this mom-daughter experience. And even though she doesn't know my name, I finally get to see this side of her that is beautiful and kind and sweet. And she just loved to see me almost every time I came in there. And so the judgment I had against myself, thinking I was a terrible caregiver, the resentment against my sister for never moving here, so many things. That year, just so many things. And I was just able to be with her, which was so wonderful. And then I had so then COVID happened and that was March. And in February, they pretty much told me that I was the only person that could go in. Me and my sister. She did come to visit every 6 weeks to 2 months and stay for a week. We were critical to my mom's care, so we were allowed to go in. And then that news broadcast, I think it was March 13th, where they said they were closing down long-term care.
Yeah,
And I went to see my mom twice that day. I went in first to just look around her room and get an idea of what she would need because it was supposed to be 2 weeks. And so I went out shopping and I got her some things and I came back. And when I came back, we were limited to rooms. We couldn't be out in the main areas. So I sat with her in her room. I played her music that she knew, and we sang songs. And they let my husband come in, which I feel like was wonderful that he was there too, because he was with me so much of this whole experience. He would go visit her. We took her out to dinner. He was so I'm so glad he got a chance to be there as well. But I sat with her and I tried not to cry because I thinking 2 weeks is like such a long time. And we're singing all these songs, and then eventually they came in and told me I had to go.
oh,
And I had this thing that I'd started doing about 6 months before because my mom had had some mini strokes, the TIAs.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and I just was like, she could go anytime. So I had this thing where I would drop her off or I would be leaving and I would walk away and let her focus go somewhere else.
yeah,
And then I would turn back and I would look at her
yeah,
and what she was wearing and her face, and I would just sort of imprint that in my mind. I already had my photo, but I would imprint that in my mind just in case. And so that night of COVID, when I had to leave, I got up and I walked to the door and I turned back. And my mom was staring right at me and she said, "What's up, Jen?"
oh
She knew
my,
my name.
oh my, yeah,
And and I said, "Oh, nothing, Mom. Oh, nothing, Mom. I'm, just saying goodbye."
yeah,
And then we left. And as I was leaving, the nurse was there, my favorite nurse. And I was just like, we couldn't hug. She was wearing a mask. I was wearing a mask.
oh my,
Um, and I just said, she's gonna forget me.
oh
But
my
and
goodness,
then we left. And the nurse there sent me some videos for the first few days,
yeah,
which were just hard to watch because in just those first few days of me not being in there, talking to my mom, going all the things, my mom was losing even more words
oh
and
my,
just like lost.
yeah, yeah. Jean, you wanted to jump in, yeah,
I just wanted to say that as your reader, Jennifer, I was so gripped by you tell so well the transformation of your mom to loving you. That is so powerful that finally she forgot her anger. She loved you. And Jennifer was so committed to going every single day to see her mom, even though people told Jennifer, you don't need to be there every day. She was so committed. I have to go every day. She loves me. I'm her only person. I have to be there. And Jennifer had the dream that most of us have of holding her mother's hand as she passed. That was uppermost in Jennifer's mind. And then the devastating twist of COVID. And Jennifer, how you dealt with that, not being able to be there, how you came to terms with that, I think is very powerful in your book as well.
Mm.
Yeah, and it just wow, thank you for that, Jean, because
Yeah.
as you're describing that, what I'm feeling just hearing this is here you had this really hard one, I don't want to say victory, but this
Mhm.
blessing, this
Oh, yeah.
surprise blessing of and we do hear people talk about this that a very fractured and difficult relationship, like when the memory ceases to remember those things and just goes back to love, this new relationship is born for people. And it's, I don't want to say it's a gift of Alzheimer's, but it can be this gift of, all of this facade we've been carrying gets lost, and so now we just get back to essence, which is mother
Mm.
daughter, right? And then that changes.
Yeah.
So maybe you can take us from there. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first things that we were able to do was visit at the window. And I know I feel very lucky that it was a one-story building and I could go sit by her window because I know many people could not. I put camping chairs in our car and I would just go there and pop up my camping chair wherever she was. If she was in the courtyard or the main area, the dining room, I would be there or around by her room. If it was warm outside and the window was open, I'd be wearing a mask. If it was cold and the window was closed, we'd be on speakerphone. And then eventually they did get a Facebook portal, so a video screen through their Facebook page, and we would talk on the portal too. We had her birthday outside the window, and we set up a little tent. We were 15 people altogether, which maxed out Oregon's limit for gatherings. We put a tabletop cover out there and moved their little smoking table that they had for the employees over underneath it. And I invited the accordion man and he played at the window for her birthday. And there was all these people inside, just like sandwiched by the window with the windows open, listening to him play out front. And he played Happy Birthday, of course, but he also played Take Me Home Country Roads, which was my mom's favorite song.
Oh,
And we had
that's
food and they would take the food in to my mom and we did all that. And that was July. It was a boiling hot day. The only other place with shade was near the garbage cans. So people would go over by the stinky garbage cans to take their masks off and get a little shade, um, and cool off a little. And so after that, because it was just so hot and it was the windows were blindingly warm, I had a thing on my phone to remind me to have lunch and call my mom, and we had lunch together on the video screen for weeks.
yeah.
And then in early August, a new employee, there was a lot of turnover at my mom's memory care. A brand new employee, her family was ill when she started working there. And a couple days later, she called out and said that they had COVID. And so that would have, my mom was tested positive on August 12th. Now we were told that it was one employee and that everyone else was fine through email.
Yeah.
And then on August 12th, I found out my mom tested positive. The nurse called and said, or the doctor called me and told me, and then she said, but your mom's a tough lady. I'm sure she'll be fine.
Mm.
And I had to agree. She was, other than Alzheimer's, up and around, before COVID. She was walking and dancing when the accordion man played. But we didn't really know the depth of what was going on inside there. The emails were not very specific. And so a couple days after my mom tested positive for COVID, she got a fever and the cough and the muscle aches and all the things that happen. And she had an oxygen thing around her nose when they moved her from there. So the choices were a hospital or a COVID nursing home that they had opened up close-ish, like 20 minutes away from me. And so that evening, when my mom was having trouble breathing, her oxygen levels were not good. She had a fever, she was miserable, and they kept calling me over and over again and wanting me to approve her going to the hospital. And my mom had a very specific DNR, and I knew she would not want life-saving measures.
Yeah.
And I just kept saying she wouldn't want that. She wouldn't want that. Because I knew if they took her to the hospital, they would ventilate her. And she would haunt me forever if that's how that went, if that's how she left this world. So I kept saying no. They were calling me at 9:30 at night. And I was calling my sister who was on the way over from Idaho. And I called my mom's best friend. And both of them gave me the comfort to know I was doing the right thing by not having her go to the hospital.
Yeah.
So she was moved to a COVID nursing home, and we could only check in once a day between 2 and 3 to see how she was doing. She was always about the same, high fever, trouble breathing, low oxygen levels, but that she was holding her own. And eventually I asked them if they had window visits or some sort of a video screen, and they did allow window visits. We were there in 20 minutes. Like, we piled in the car, my sister, her husband, her youngest son, my nephew, and I. And we went over there. It was a very old building with a grainy glass and then those really tight weave screens and the squares. So it's hard to see her at all. I have a picture where she looks, I mean, it's just hard to see her, but
Yeah.
she was sitting up, very medicated. And she smiled and said at one point, "What happened?"
Yeah.
Which, very fitting. Like, what happened? How did I end up here? But she smiled at me. She was, yeah. Eventually, the phone just fell in her lap, and we just watched her sleep.
Yeah.
And then we left, and I did turn back again and look at her sleeping in the window. And a couple days later, she was still the same. So my sister and her family left and went back to Idaho. And it wasn't even 24 hours later when they called and told me that they believed she was at end of life.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Oh, that's so hard. And I mean, just kudos to you for just getting out there and being there and trying to see her as much as you could. And then,
I will have to say, I
yeah.
hated that window.
Yeah.
I hated those window visits.
Yeah.
I I did them, but I wanted to be in there.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
one cut her hair. No one cut her
Yeah.
nails. She just I just, all the things that I did for her were just stripped away from me.
I know. I can't even imagine how hard that would be. So I think that goes to your title, when a window closes. And
Hmm.
so, I want to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about, the rest of the title is, what I learned caring for my mom while she was alive and dying. Do you have a couple nuggets you can share with us about those? What were the key things you learned about yourself, about your
Oh,
mom, about love, about whatever?
oh, wow. That's such a good question. Uh, well, the main thing that I learned is that my mom loved me,
Yeah.
even when I thought that she didn't love me, even when I knew I was her least favorite daughter. Um, that she loved me. I wasn't her least favorite daughter. She loved both of us, and all that pressure I put on that was taken away. I think I also really learned that life is crazy, weird, and takes a lot of unexpected turns. And I can tell you that now I say yes to a lot more things. My depth of love and the way I love my kids and my husband and my grandkids, that learning that unconditional love from my mom, that it was always there. All I had to do was just believe and know it was there and feel it, has given me this incredibly deep sense of love for just the people in my life, to never, ever take them for granted. And that has been one of the biggest gifts of this for me, is not being afraid to
Yeah.
just love. And I mean, I do crazy things with my grandsons now that I probably would have said no to before, but it's
Well, those are powerful gifts. I mean, how beautiful. And I think again, such a hard won kind
mm,
of realization that your mother loved you, and for you to be able to just really take that in is huge. And I think, for all of our listeners, just knowing that as hard as it can be, that, just unconditional, sincere love is what carries us through most of these times.
yeah.
And yeah, that's gorgeous. Thank you so much. I want to give you an opportunity to, I don't know if you have something you could read for us, a little segment, that would be great. And
I
then,
do.
yeah, perfect.
Okay, so I am gonna read from the chapter The Last Time My Mom and Dad Saw Each Other. My dad really was the person that I went to when I had questions about my mom, some of the crazy things she said. His memory was clear until the end. He passed away last year.
Mm.
And I wrote, my editor was the one who actually said, we need some wrap up on your dad. You mentioned that he left and your parents got divorced, but you stop right there. And so she's the one who said, we need you to come full circle with your dad. So this chapter is because of her. So my one of my grandsons was born, and my son and his wife had come into town. A little bit of backstory on this chapter, and we were having family photos taken. So all three of my kids, brand new grandson, my dad came into town. It was his birthday weekend, and then we all went with my mom to her place, took photos. And so the entire time I'm kind of prepping her that my dad's coming into town. And she kept saying, I was never married. I was never married. And I was like, well, how do you have me? I don't know. So, when they met, he just said, hello, kiddo, because that's what he says to all of us. Hello, kiddo. And, it was fine. All my worries about whether she was going to be upset with him or whatever weren't there. And so we had taken our photos. Um, and I'm on page 115 at the very bottom. During the photography session, my mom came over to me and whispered, I remember him. He is your dad. I smiled at her as I opened my mouth to reply. She added, but I was never married. I laughed and let her have her moment and let her have the moment because though I was a slow learner, I had learned that trying to tell her how it was harder than letting her tell me how it was. These were her memories after all. After our chilly photo shoot, we walked back to Mom's place and went to their facility conference room. Our family group had pizza, and I'd made cupcakes for my dad's birthday. As we were sitting at the table eating, I glanced at my dad sitting next to me, his head leaning towards my mom's. They were talking in quiet voices. I remember the house with the white barn, my mom said. My dad nodded. Was was that the house with the red kitchen? He shook his head no. The red kitchen house was in Minnesota, the house with the loft. Oh. And my mom scrunched her face, trying to remember. She gazed off to the side and then back at my dad. Okay. My mom was quiet. She moved her plate aside and put her hands on the table. After a moment, she lowered her voice and asked, "Can we go through them again? I don't want to forget." Sure. My dad smiled and set his plate aside too. My mom and dad started again with their apartment in San Francisco, and my dad patiently walked through every place they lived together, helping my mom piece together her memories. This was a beautiful moment. It was like I was a kid again, watching my parents at the kitchen table as they made plans for their little homestead, planning where they would put the goats, the chickens, and everything else. "Where will we put the bees?" my mom asked. My dad laughed. "Farther from the house than last time." I don't remember much about my young childhood except running through the farm, driving a tractor with my dad, and hiding in the lilac trees until there were too many bees and I had to run out before I got stung. Our family always had goats, rabbits, dogs, pigs, and so much to do. As I remember it, it was a wonderful life, but my mom and dad were not meant to be together, and my life changed. As I sat at that table in that assisted living, watching my mom and dad talking and laughing, and him gently helping her through her ragged memories, I was touched by their closeness after so many years apart. My dad's memories are still crystal clear, and my mom needed that. I needed that. Even now, when I have questions about my mom, he is the one I turn to.
Oh, that's just so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's so great. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you being so vulnerable to tell us all of these, um, these very personal stories and your trials and tribulations. I just want to say thank you for that. That's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Can you tell our listeners where they can find your book, where they can find out more about you?
Yeah. So I have a website, jensull.com, JENNSULL.com. Jennifer Sullivan was taken, and so I needed to be creative. I wrote a lot about my journey with my mom there. I also have Instagram. I am Jen, JENN Sullivan. And
Good.
I am on Facebook too, but most of where I post everything is on Instagram.
Excellent.
So,
And so we can get your book, I know, at AlzAuthors.com. So
yes.
we can find it there. And also Amazon. Do you have an audiobook or anything else you can tell us about?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon, paperback, and then the ebook is available everywhere. Barnes and Noble, Nook, all those places. And then I did record an audiobook. I turned my closet into a little recording studio, and because I work in technology for a living, I knew enough to know that I could record it and edit it and get it ready myself. So I did record it. It was 5 months, but
Oh my
I got
goodness.
it all done. And that is also available everywhere. Spotify, Audible, audiobooks.com, iTunes. It's all over. That's been absolutely wonderful to hear from people about that.
Oh, terrific. Well, that's perfect and that's wonderful. That you're all over the place. And I love it that you have an audiobook too, because so many of our readers want to read and may not have time because of their caregiving. And that's why we have the podcast and we have the YouTube channel. And we love it when our authors have audiobooks. That's
Mhm.
fantastic. Um, Before I leave, Jean, did you have any last comments that you want to share?
Uh, Jennifer, thank you for allowing us to feature your book. And at All's Authors, we say that we are healed through one another, and the stories that we feature help others heal in this journey. And yours is an important book in that collection.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean.
Yeah, for sure. I want to echo that too. I feel like there's a lot of healing in this, and I love that you were willing to put so much into it. And I know you also shared very honestly about even the struggles with your sister. So I think that
Mhm.
that's in the book is also important because our listeners, so many people, it's not like this, everything's rosy and wonderful and everybody gets along and everything's happy and there we tie it up with a little bow. It's like this is real life. And so
Yeah.
thank you for being vulnerable and sharing all of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for being part of this. And again, welcome to the AlzAuthors family. And well, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm so honored.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. AlzAuthors is celebrating 10 years in 2025. Please help us celebrate. How, you might ask? I'm Christy Byrne Yates, and I'm an ALZ author and also the co-host of our podcast, Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia. Here's how you can help us celebrate this year. Visit our website and subscribe to our newsletter at alzauthors.com. Like and subscribe to our podcast, Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Buy books from our authors. We have over 400 authors and every genre is represented. Finally, donate. It's our 10th anniversary, so consider $10 donation or $10,000, whatever works for you. Your generous donation allows us to continue to bring you wonderful authors and informative and supportive content for your dementia journey. We're a registered 501c3 organization, so your donation is tax deductible. Remember, you are not alone. Thank you for your support.